Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Mr. B. We have the latest development. It seems like Donald Trump has landed a peace deal with Iran. He's saying it is to be signed in this week at some point, either Friday or Sunday. There's mixed reports on that. We are joining First Post to kind of give some, reporting on this particular announcement. There's also an announcement that there's a rift between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu over the terms of this deal. That being said, I don't really have the full details on that, but we'll go ahead and report utilizing First Post. Let's go ahead and jump right into that.
Hello and welcome to First Post Live, where we bring you the day's top stories from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the First Post studios. Let's begin with the headlines. China says that strengthening its military is beneficial to world peace, while slamming a report that warned of a direct strike by Beijing on Australia. In Geneva, protests against the upcoming G7 summit enter day 2 as thousands take to the streets, vandalizing public property and a bank building. Demonstrators say the summit only serves the interests of the world's 7 wealthiest nations. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announces a total ban on social media for children under 16, saying such platforms are making children unhappy. The UN says gang violence in Haiti has killed at least 2,300 people this year, while nearly 100 have been kidnapped. The UN human rights chief urges Haitian authorities to tackle the ongoing impunity. And Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. calls a special session of the Congress to pass a number of priority bills amid a power struggle in the Senate that has deepened the nation's political uncertainty. After more than 3 months of war, missile strikes and fears of a wider regional conflict, a major breakthrough may finally be on the horizon. The United States and Iran have reached a preliminary peace agreement aimed at ending the West Asia War. The deal is expected to be formally signed in Switzerland on June the 19th. US President Donald Trump is expected to attend the signing ceremony. But what exactly is in this agreement? And more importantly, can it hold? The breakthrough was announced through mediator Pakistan. It was later confirmed by officials in both Washington and Tehran. But while the full memorandum remains unpublished, Iranian media reports have revealed what is believed to be a 14-point framework. The first point is clear: an immediate and permanent end to the war, not just between the US and Iran, but across all fronts, including Lebanon. The agreement also includes a US commitment to respect Iran's sovereignty and stay out of its internal affairs. The deal then turns to military de-escalation. The naval blockade is to be lifted within 30 days. US forces positioned around Iran are to withdraw, and no additional American troops would be deployed during the negotiation period. Another major demand: the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Under the reported framework, the crucial waterway would resume operations within 30 days under Iranian arrangements. A move closely watched by global energy markets. Economic relief is another key pillar. Sanctions on Iranian oil and petrochemical exports would be suspended. Iran would regain access to financial resources, and around $24 billion in frozen Iranian funds would be released during a 60-day negotiation period. Half of that amount could be unlocked even before talks begin. The agreement also opens the door to reconstruction. The US and its allies are expected to present plans worth at least $300 billion. The aim to help rebuild after months of conflict and instability. At the center of the next phase lies the nuclear issue. A 60-day negotiation window has been proposed. Iran would reaffirm its commitment under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and pledge not to develop nuclear weapons. But there is an important condition, that future negotiations would focus only on uranium enrichment, enriched material, sanctions relief, and economic reconstruction. Iran's missile program and support for resistant groups would remain off the table. To ensure compliance, a monitoring mechanism would oversee implementation. And any final agreement would eventually be ratified through a United Nations Security Council resolution. Following the announcement, Donald Trump welcomed the framework, congratulating everyone involved in the negotiations. Meanwhile, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi has stressed that implementation will be the real test. According to him, specific plans are already being prepared to monitor US commitments under the agreement.
We have no trust whatsoever in the enemy. Our trust is in our military power, our diplomatic strength, and the support and unity of our own people. For that reason, implementation of this memorandum is extremely important. We have specific plans to monitor the implementation of America's commitments under this Memorandum of Understanding, as well as in the second phase, when negotiations will be necessary in order to reach a final agreement.
But not everyone is celebrating. The emerging deal has drawn criticism from Israel. Rejecting the proposed deal, Israel's national security minister said that any agreement reached by Trump would not be binding for Tel Aviv.
Israel is not subject to the United States, and we are an independent and sovereign nation. My position is clear. We are not partners to this agreement that does not ensure our security, and it does not bind us in any way.
Meanwhile, some members of Trump's own Republican Party have criticized the deal. Critics reportedly argue that the framework does little more than revive elements of the 2015 nuclear deal, the very agreement Trump once called a bad deal. There were also signs of tension inside Iran. Just hours before the announcement, Tehran warned that internal divisions could weaken its negotiating position. President Masoud Pezeshkian called for unity and condemned those who label negotiators as traitors. For now, all eyes are on the deal. The diplomacy is beginning, but the toughest phase may still lie ahead. Because signing a deal is one thing, but making it work could be entirely different.
Okay, so as you can see, it seems like Donald Trump has apparently a deal in the works that seems feasible. I've heard reports that Iran is claiming that because they withstood the onslaught of attacks from the U.S. and the regime is still in power, that they've won. Trump, I think he's at his up to here. I don't think Trump wants to add any more, resources towards this conflict. I think he's ready to move on, and he's ready to walk away from the situation. So naturally, Donald Trump is looking for the exit ramp. Unfortunately, I don't think that Israel's agenda is very clear in terms of what they define as success. Sure, the U.S. attacked Iran. Sure, there were issues pertaining to Iran's nuclear proliferation. Sure, there was a number of other threats. I think there's been significant damage done to Iran. I think they know that the U.S. is serious. And I think, really and truly, Trump made his point. He's willing to attack if there's any real threats to one of his allies. And unfortunately, I just don't know that that's enough for Israel. I think they have their own agenda and things that they want to have accomplished. And because the two things don't seem to be aligned, I think there'll be some conflict that continues to proceed. Like right now, they're attacking Lebanon. I couldn't tell you for the life of me why. They want to create a buffer, or is it a land grab? I don't know. But I think Trump's at the point where it doesn't seem like he's okay co-signing something that does not align with his initial agenda, especially not at the cost of being dubbed the villain and the cost of this war, the lack of oil, the cost to real people in America, I think it's taking its toll, and Trump can see a little down the road, and he can feel in his gut this will have an effect on the midterms, and thereby putting him at risk for potentially getting impeached. So that being said, I think Trump is doing the right thing by exiting stage left as soon as possible. The question is, though, can he get out? They continue to attack, Israel continue to attack Lebanon, and it's continuing to cause a rift.
For years, US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have been seen as political allies, two leaders who often stood shoulder to shoulder on the world stage. But now that relationship appears to be under strain. Trump has made some of his harshest remarks yet on Netanyahu amid the backdrop of the recently announced US-Iran peace deal. While speaking to the New York Times, Trump slammed Netanyahu's actions, claiming that the Israeli leader should be grateful for this deal.
He's a very difficult guy. And to be honest with you, he should be very thankful to us for doing this. Because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, Israel wouldn't be around for 2 hours.
Well, the US president also criticized Netanyahu for escalating attacks in Lebanon as Israeli troops struck Hezbollah holdouts in Beirut on June the 14th, killing 3 people. Trump said such attacks could derail the final peace agreement between the US and Iran.
This attack on Beirut should not have happened, particularly on a special day when we are so close to a peace deal with Iran. Israel has the right to defend itself against threats, but the attack it was responding to was very small and meaningless. Nobody was hurt, injured, or killed, and should not disrupt this important process.
Well, as per the agreement, all military operations, including those in Lebanon, must be halted, and negotiations will resume between the US and Iran on several issues. This also includes talks on Tehran's nuclear program. The US will also end its naval blockade and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, ensuring that the key shipping route becomes permanently toll-free. But Trump has also included a caveat. If Iran fails to reach a nuclear accord with the US, he will restart military attacks on Tehran or make the United States the guardian of West Asia in return for 20% of the region's revenues. Now, Israel was not involved in these negotiations over the newly announced deal, and the new deal's terms have reportedly sparked profound concern among Israeli officials. According to Israeli media, the primary concern is that Washington could significantly curtail the Israeli Defense Forces or IDF's actions against Hezbollah if the final deal demands a complete halt to Israeli military activity in Lebanon. According to reports, during one of their recent conversations, Trump also proposed to Netanyahu that Israel should withdraw its forces from southern Lebanon. The idea was said to be rejected outright by the Israeli leader, who argued that such a move would neither serve Israel nor America. Reports also claimed that the US spent quite some time pressing Israel to not escalate tensions with Iran, while promising to do everything possible to prevent any Iranian attacks. Israeli officials have hinted that Washington's move had left Jerusalem stunned. Some called Trump's announcement a resounding slap on the face, while others alleged that the US is trying to normalize firing at Israel and not behaving like a strategic ally should. For now, Benjamin Netanyahu has not publicly reacted to the developments, even as intense negotiations are underway ahead of the deal signing in Switzerland on June the 19th. A friendship that helped reshape West Asia's political landscape may now be facing its biggest test yet. As negotiators race towards a final agreement, the big question is no longer just about Iran. It is also about the future of US-Israel coordination in a rapidly changing West Asia. Moving on, the war between Russia and Ukraine has dragged on for longer than World War I. On Sunday, the leaders of both countries found themselves speaking to the same person, US President Donald Trump. The calls came as Trump celebrated his 80th birthday, with both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reaching out to the US leader. According to the Kremlin, Putin congratulated Trump on his birthday and discussed a number of issues, including the war on Ukraine, US-Russia ties, and ongoing negotiations involving Iran. The Kremlin said the two leaders also discussed future diplomatic contact. According to Moscow, it was agreed that US presidential envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner would visit Russia soon. Hours after speaking with Putin, Trump held a phone conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Kyiv described the conversation as substantive, saying the two leaders discussed a broad range of issues, including the war with Russia. And even as the calls between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky took place, the fighting continued. The Ukrainian Air Force says Russia launched 70 missiles and more than 600 drones overnight. The strikes killed at least 9 people.
If you want to start an online business, you have to understand that 90% of people running agencies right now are poor.
And one of the attacks triggered a fire at Kyiv's historic Dormition Cathedral, a landmark religious site in the Ukrainian capital. Russia has denied responsibility for the damage, claiming the cathedral was struck by a US-made Patriot air defense missile. France condemned the strike, saying an attack on Kyiv's monastery is comparable to striking Notre Dame in Paris.
En Ukraine, où une nouvelle fois, la nuit dernière,
In Ukraine, where once again overnight, Vladimir Putin's Russia showed the extent of its cruelty by massively striking the capital Kyiv, causing extremely severe damage to the Cathedral of the Assumption, and is the Kyiv-Pechorsk Lavra, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which for us French would be the equivalent of bombing Notre Dame or Saint-Denis, something that is obviously unacceptable.
ou de Saint-Denis, ce qui est évidemment inacceptable.
Well, at the same time, Ukraine carried out strikes inside Russian territory. Russian authorities say that Ukrainian attacks south of Moscow killed at least 3 people. So for now, the calls between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky have added another round of high-level engagements with efforts aimed at addressing the conflict. But on the ground, the war continues as both sides report new casualties and fresh attacks. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Slovakia. The visit is a historic one. It is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Slovakia since the country's independence in 1993. PM Modi arrived in Bratislava for the second leg of his 3-nation European tour. He was received by Slovak Foreign Minister Juraj Blana. The Prime Minister was also accorded a traditional bread and salt welcome. The ceremony reflects a long-standing Slovak tradition. Bread symbolizes prosperity, while salt represents friendship and goodwill. PM Modi described the gesture as a reflection of Slovakia's cultural heritage. The Prime Minister also received a cultural welcome. The Lucena Shambal performed traditional Slovak music, and dance performances were also part of the reception. Members of the Indian diaspora gathered in large numbers in Bratislava. They greeted the Prime Minister on his arrival. PM Modi was seen interacting with members of the community. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was accorded a Guard of Honor during his official visit to Slovakia. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico accompanied PM Modi during the ceremonial welcome. Now, this visit comes at the personal invitation of Prime Minister Fico. Later, the two leaders met at Bratislava Castle for bilateral talks. Discussions focused on further strengthening India-Slovakia cooperation. Discussions reportedly focused on economic cooperation, trade and investment were also high on the agenda. The two sides also discussed innovation, automobile manufacturing and railway production featured in the talks. Emerging technologies were also discussed. The Indian Prime Minister also met leading Slovak business executives. The talks aim to explore new opportunities for cooperation, and the visit follows a series of high-level exchanges between these two countries. Indian President Draupadi Murmu visited Slovakia in April 2025. In return, Slovakia's President Pellegrini visited India earlier this year. The Slovakia visit follows Prime Minister Modi's stop in France. He held talks with French President Emmanuel Macron in Nice. Macron also added a Bollywood twist to the diplomatic visits. The French president shared a video of his interactions with Modi. The clip was set to a popular Bollywood track from the film Durandar.
It is a huge honor, dear Prime Minister, dear Narendra, to welcome you here in Nice, to open up the very first Bharat Innovate outside of India. Together, a few months ago, in Mumbai, we launched that year of French-India innovation. And as the video showcased this, the question was not if India is innovating, but who is going to innovate with India. So, dear Prime Minister, I would like to congratulate you, of course, for being here.
Well, at the event, the Prime Minister spoke about India's long tradition of innovation.
Innovation is in India's DNA. हजारों वर्षों से भारत ने अपने नॉलेज और इनोवेशन से दुनिया को नई दिशा दी है। मैथमेटिक्स से लेकर एस्ट्रोनॉमी तक, मेडिसिन से लेकर के योगा तक, भारत का योगदान संपूर्ण मानवता की प्रगति का आधार रहा है।
And after Slovakia, PM Modi will again return to France as he is set to attend the G7 summit in Evian in June the 16th and 17th. Discussions are expected to cover global cooperation, economic growth and artificial intelligence are also on the agenda. The final leg of the tour will take the Prime Minister to Paris. He will attend VivaTech 2026. The event is described as Europe's largest technology and startup gathering. French President Emmanuel Macron is also expected to attend. So for New Delhi, the visit is also an opportunity to strengthen its outreach to the European Union. Slovakia is a member of the 27-nation bloc. But now, with talks focused on trade, technology and investments, both sides will be looking to expand their partnership. Well, that's all we have on the programme for today. We'll see you again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Until then, thanks for watching First Post Live.
So there you have it. That is the news, the latest development. As you can see, there is a little bit of a rift between Trump and Netanyahu. Again, I think their end goals are different. And it doesn't seem like Israel is not ambitious about, their land grab. So if not now, it's probably going to get a lot stickier because, it's something that's costing us a lot of money. And I don't think Trump has the political leeway to kind of do what he wants to do, especially going into an election year where he first has to protect his base and protect his control of the House and the Senate. So that being said, he's got to take some other moves, and you could tell the rift. Now, it was kind of interesting to hear that he was critical of the prime minister and just said that they should be grateful that we've done what we've done for them. So normally when Trump starts talking like that, that means he's taking a whole different position. It's almost like that riff he had with Zelensky, where it was like, you're not grateful. And Trump was willing to put a pause on that whole operation when he started talking like that. So you don't know if it's at that point, but clearly the two men are not seeing eye to eye on things. And it doesn't seem like it's at a point where Trump is putting a pause on support for Israel. But at this point, it does seem like he's making moves without having them at the table because he's trying to protect his interests. Well, you guys weigh in on this. What do you think? Is this a good thing for Donald Trump, bad thing for Donald Trump? Is this something that he should have done? Is now the time to do it? Weigh in. Let me know your thoughts. If you're not already a subscribe member, like and subscribe, stay connected. All right, guys. Thank you as always. Have a blessed day until we speak again.